Video, I'm going to give you guys an instructional video, just some tips on one of my favorite combative techniques, which is the straight punch. Not the most exciting of a technique in the world, but I think one of the most important. So I'm going to go over the three elements that we teach to make the straight punch effective, and I'll show you how that works. I can even do it sitting down, so I can't stand up because I don't have room in the office. So the three key elements of our straight punch is I want to focus with impact coming from the middle knuckle, and what this does, it allows me to keep my bone alignment nice and strong. The tendency, when people think about using two knuckles or the bottom two knuckles or fall, it tends to keep the wrist and not as a line. So it's important that I want the wrist dead straight so that the support structure is in place when I make contact. So I focus on hitting with the big knuckle. Now, obviously, all the knuckles are going to make contact eventually, but I want to focus on primary impact coming from the big knuckle. The second point that's important is as I'm extending my punch, I keep my arm to the floor. And I do that for a couple of reasons. The main one is I want to prevent the peripheral vision of my attacker from picking up on the movement until it's too late. By peripheral vision, I mean the central vision is what we focus with detail. So like I'm looking at my camera, I can kind of read the lettering on the lens and whatnot. And I can see over on my left there's a box, but I can't read anything else on the box. But now that I'm looking at it, I can read the label. So, but if something popped out of that box, I would see the movement right away. That's the difference. So if my elbows come out, I telegraph my movement because now that peripheral vision is engaged. Central vision is mostly detail. Peripheral vision is mostly movement. So I keep my elbow down as long as possible so that I can focus on hiding the movement. When I do strikes, I want to try to think of keeping most of my movement within the outlines of my torso. So I don't really, I don't like to wing punch. Even when we do hook punches comes out and around. That's another lesson. And the third element that's really important is I want to extend my body, my arm, and I'm going to rotate my torso until my shoulder is covering my chin. Okay, this way it not only keeps my chin protected, which is important, but it ensures that I'm rotating my body. And when I do this punch, basically my shoulders end up in a straight line with my elbow and the big knuckle. That's kind of the guideline I shoot for. Many people, when they throw straight punches, especially guys, they tend to lean into the strike because they want to think of like they're pushing a car. So they're like driving forward with their upper body muscles. And what I want to do is I want to keep the axle of that wheel as my spine. So I'm going to rotate my far shoulder back as my front shoulder comes forward. So I'm not getting this chest forward leaning posture. So those are the elements that make up the straight punch. And if I'm doing a rear side punch, my hip has to rotate a little bit to make that happen. So your foot's going to turn. That'll usually happen pretty much by itself. It's very easy to overthink these details. Biomechanics are generally pretty natural, but there are some details I want to correct when I have to take into account that I'm dealing with another living being that's going to respond to what I'm doing. So the big knuckle makes contact first. That's what I focus on. My elbow stays pointed to the floor as long as possible, and I rotate my torso until my shoulder is covering my chin. So those are the elements on a straight punch, and it'll make yours better, and that's how we teach it here at HTK.